So welcome everyone to another episode of the County for All Cars, and you join me today in Tess, my 1967 Triumph Vitesse 2 litre, and this is a wonderful Sunday morning. We're in the second week of October. As you can see, the trees are still clinging onto their leaves, and part of that I think is because of the mild weather. But today I thought we would just take the Vitesse for a spin along some of the lesser known roads between Framlingham and Halesworth, again in the east of Suffolk. It's just after 9 a.m, so I'm sort of hoping that we've got the roads pretty much to ourselves, so we'll be able to enjoy some brisk driving. In my last video, we talked about the carburetors on Bess, my Mark II Vitesse, and I was explaining that that car, which has had a sort of somewhat checkered history, at some point the original Stromberg carburetors had been swapped for a pair of SUs, and when I first got that car I assumed that the SUs must have been H6s and had come straight from a large Triumph saloon, and simply they'd just taken the manifold with the carburetors off and bolted that on. It transpired that it was a bit more complicated than that, and that actually it looks as though the car has the smaller S4s. Nonetheless, we seem to have come to a stage where, as far as that car is concerned, it's fine as it is for the moment, and there is a debate in my own mind, and I noticed in the comment section about whether I should sort of return it to stock, you know, put Strombergs back in, or stick with the SUs, but either go up a size or just try swapping out the carburetor needles. And I think I sort of said in that video that I really was sort of conflicted by this, and part of it goes back to the car having belonged to Tony and my inclination not to do very much with it, but to kind of keep it as he had it. And you know, clearly, you know, he enjoyed driving it just as it was, and it is an enjoyable car to drive. Besides, I have this one which has got its original Strombergs, and I get a different experience when I drive this car. Now, this one has recently come back from having its carburetors set up, and the work was done very beautifully by John at Anglian Triumph Services in Ditchingham, and from what I can gather, I think John is the Stromberg guy in this area to go to. And I'd had a problem at the beginning of the year where it was running quite rich, and I'm not sure why that came about. I thought initially it was because I got a problem with the air filters. I hadn't sort of cleaned them for a long time, which is a terrible oversight on my part. But I sort of really noticed the car running rich during the annual Ipswich to Felixstowe run when I sat in traffic. Being the sort of character that I am, I was in complete denial, of course, because I assumed it was the smell of the unburnt petrol was coming from the car behind me. not from my car. And I can't be certain that that wasn't also the case, but it really became an issue sort of later on in the year when I drove my niece to her high school prom, and we were sat in traffic, and I realised that actually the plugs were starting to foul. Nonetheless, after sort of fiddling around with it myself, I managed to lean off the mixture, but at the same time I got the carbs slightly out of balance, and Ditchingham is about an hour's drive from me, so it is a bit of a commitment. I've got to go over there, leave the car, come back, pick it up, etc. But in the end I decided it'd be much better just to let one of the experts have a look at it, and as I say, John's been able to set it up beautifully, and the risk of gassing myself with petrol fumes has diminished. But I mention this because in contrast to the Mark II, what you notice is the tractability of this car at low revs, and much smoother when it pulls. I should also mention, if I haven't done in a previous video, for any of you who sort of watch the instruments while I'm filming, the rev counter on this car overreads by 500 RPM. So I'm not pushing the engine as much as it looks like. So we're actually now doing about just under 2,500 RPM. We're at 50 miles an hour in overdrive top. But again, if I back off from the car in front, just gently squeeze the throttle, the power delivery is so smooth, it's just gorgeous. Right, foot down a bit. Yeah, that's better. These are the kind of roads that these cars were made for, really. Sort of gently sweeping bends. Nothing too dramatic. Just an example of having to brake in the straight line before the corner. And obviously I'm aware we've got a cyclist up ahead here, so just coming slow behind. Now we'll look past. And we're good. And you guys are lucky you can't smell what I can, the old muck spreading. Best described as fruity. Got to be a little bit careful here because the road surface undulates, and this is a thing that can sort of catch you out in a car with primitive suspension. It's not so much the bends, it's being pitched just at the wrong moment. My daily driver, which I have to say, when I call it a daily driver, I only actually use it for appointments for work. Because I can't insure the old cars for business use. As a Mark III MX-5, and that thing copes with these sort of roads without any problems at all. The setup of the suspension is just so sophisticated that everything feels like a smooth go-kart when you're in it. We're just coming around the back of Halesworth here, and we'll need to make a right. It's an interesting fact, but I've been driving along this road for 30 years, and the surface has never been as uneven as it is now, and a lot of this is down to the weight of agricultural vehicles, a little bit like that enormous tractor that we passed a while back, and the size of things like grain lorries all impact the road surface. But of course domestic cars are getting so much heavier, you know, there's, I guess, like America and Australia, the sort of the demand for SUVs, you know, people buy SUVs because they say, well, the roads are in terrible condition and, you know, it's much better being in an SUV. But of course there's an argument which says, well, roads are in terrible condition because of all the SUVs and the added weight, particularly on roads like this. But it does make me wonder what's going to happen if there is this sort of mass switch to battery powered vehicles, because they're certainly not going to be any lighter. These two new houses are an example of the way in which some of the more enlightened developers and architects have tried to blend new buildings into old surroundings. So this is again part of the Framlingham estate, and one of the things that the landowner has done here is to introduce these metal hurdles, and so this road is lined with these beautiful railings which keep the sheep in, and they also work quite nicely because they stop the deer from coming across the road. So we've got the River Blyth off to our left here, Just see the sheep up on the fields off to my left. Really is the most beautiful landscape. I'm just going to run you back through where we've been with the camera facing the other way. Sure if this will give you a better appreciation of the countryside we're driving through, but hopefully it will at least give you a different perspective. I was reading something the other day in which a well-known physicist was talking about time and a theory that all time exists simultaneously and that it is not the way we experience it in a sort of linear fashion. When I'm out in the countryside like this, I can kind of get a sense of all time existing at once. And some people would describe it as a timeless experience. For me, it's a time-full experience. I'm conscious of the fact that we're in the 21st century. Driving a 20th century car. Across to my right there's a building that comes from the 18th century with landscapes formed in the 1700s where landowners have tried to sort of create their own sort of artificial landscape. But we're looking at the undulations of the land that have been formed from the outwash of glaciation. Below the soil we've got chalk and flint which comes from prehistoric seabeds. And it all exists as one unit in a single place. And somehow on a still Sunday morning like this, I can sense and feel all of it, and all at once. It's a real privilege.